Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
The word legend may be thrown around a lot in WWE these days, but there will always be a place for legends in pro wrestling. WWE has the benefit of having access to more legendary wrestlers than any other promotion. However, they have been misusing their legends for far too long. Today, we will show you how, and more importantly, how it can be fixed.
Gee, Brain, what do you want to do today?
The same thing we do every day, Ollie. Try to fix the WWE. Welcome one and all, I'm the Brain, Brian Joyce from WrestleTalk.com, and before we get started, make sure to like this video, give us a subscribe, and answer this video's question. The question being, which WWE legend you would like to see return for one more match? We will separate WWE's legend usage into two categories, matches and segments. While there is some crossover between the two, we will analyze how WWE misuses their former stars in both cases separately. Legends who have returned for matches over the years have been wrestlers such as The Undertaker, Kurt Angle, and Goldberg, while legends who return for promos and segments have included the likes of Stone Cold Steve Austin, Ric Flair, and your uncle who makes people uncomfortable at Thanksgiving. The legends who return for matches usually do so at either WrestleMania or events taking place in Saudi Arabia. I wonder why that might be. These matches are usually contested against other legends as opposed to younger stars, as illustrated by matches like DX versus the Brothers of Destruction and Triple H versus The Undertaker. Many of the legends used for matches are past the point where they can perform at the same level that they once could. Let's look at The Undertaker as an example. Undertaker has not had a good singles match since 2015, which makes his matches feel less special for the audience as a result. His matches do not have a place in ongoing storylines, and thus do not serve a purpose beyond a payday. Another example of a legend misused by WWE has been Kurt Angle. From April 3rd, 2017 to August 20th, 2018, Angle served as general manager of Raw. During his time as Raw GM, his matches were utilized quite well for the most part. He was an honorary member of The Shield, and while the match was kind of funky, his inclusion was considered a big deal. Then, he teamed with Ronda Rousey to defeat Triple H and Stephanie McMahon in a show-stealing match at WrestleMania 34. For that first year, he may have been degraded by Stephanie from time to time, but when he got in the ring, it was treated like it was important. The following year was quite the opposite. He was used far too frequently, and he often lost his matches. By the time he lost to Baron Corbin at WrestleMania 35, his aura had already been destroyed by his frequent losses, and thus losing to Corbin meant nothing. In order for a legend wrestling to mean something, they need to wrestle every once in a while, and only lose when it means something. Angle should not have wrestled 15 matches in his last 6 months, and he definitely should not have lost to Drew McIntyre, Dolph Ziggler, and Baron Corbin during those months. In wrestling, if things are going to have an impact, they need to mean something. By taking the meaning out of Angle's WrestleMania match, it eliminated the impact winning had for Corbin, and more importantly, it made Angle sad, which makes me sad. A more positive example is WWE's use of Goldberg. With the exception of his match against The Undertaker, Goldberg has been used perfectly. The Lesnar program was a great success, and it resulted in Goldberg only losing once, and looking like a megastar in the process. He had the aura of a real star, and that is something many of the current wrestlers are lacking. His match at SummerSlam 2019 against Dolph Ziggler was tremendous fun. I was there live, and the crowd popped every time Goldberg made his way to the ring to kill Ziggler, myself included. It reintroduced Goldberg as an unstoppable monster after he looked particularly bad against The Undertaker. But more on this later. What happens far more often in WWE are segments and promos featuring legends. These segments are usually used to try and pop a rating as opposed to getting someone over. Very often these segments fail to give the fans a reason to continue to watch after the legend has left. Take The Rock's promo on SmackDown's debut on Fox as an example. When The Rock appeared on SmackDown on Fox, it was solely for the reason to pop a rating. It did nothing to build interest in the next week's episode. The Rock is one of the biggest wrestling stars in history, and one of the biggest mainstream stars in the world, and his appearances are a luxury for WWE. His appearances need to be capitalized on, otherwise they are only good for boosting that week's rating. Baron Corbin gained nothing from being The Rock's punching bag. Does a Goomba gain anything from being crushed by Mario? Now Corbin is in the same position he was in, and The Rock is gone. Thus, nothing was accomplished. If there is one event that relied on legends yet accomplished very little with them, it is WrestleMania 32 in Arlington, Texas. This WrestleMania was notorious for many of WWE's current stars being injured. John Cena, Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, and Cesaro were all out of action that year, and thus WWE leaned on using legends to fill their show. Appearances were made by The Rock, Shawn Michaels, Mick Foley, and Stone Cold Steve Austin, among others. After the New Day lost to the League of Nations, remember them? Wade Barrett challenged any three men to take them on. HBK, Foley, and Austin came to the ring and laid waste to the League before doing a little dance and taking out the New Day as well. None of the current stars looked like they were anywhere near the level of stardom of the Attitude Era stars. Neither the League of Evil X Champions nor the New Day benefited from being associated with these legends. This was illustrated by the New Day staying in the same spot on the card for the better part of the next 3 years, and the League going their separate ways less than a month after the event, with two of them leaving the company. Nothing was accomplished by putting these legends and the current stars in the ring together besides a pop from the live crowd. These are just merely a couple examples of this issue, but the same things can be seen virtually every time legends are featured on WWE programming. Now, let's see how we can solve this problem. You always need a legend. You always need somebody that the people associate or remember from their childhood that can still get in and do it once in a while. This quote was taken from an interview with Jim Cornette, and if there's anything that Jim Cornette knows better than anyone these days, it's how to book old school wrestling. A perfect example of how a legend was properly utilized in another promotion is the usage of Bullet Bob Armstrong in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. While Smoky Mountain had a relatively short lifespan, they did manage to get a lot of things right from storyline perspectives. Armstrong was the on-screen commissioner for SMW and was respected by the Southern audience. When he was forced to get in the ring to thwart a dastardly heel, it drew money. The best example of this was when he wrestled Jim Cornette in a match where he guaranteed that if he did not put Cornette in the hospital, he would refund the tickets of every man, woman, and child that paid to see that match. Well, wouldn't you know who won the pony? It was a financial success. The important takeaway from this, however, is that Armstrong was never humiliated, and his matches were presented as attractions and delivered as such. Obviously, some things must change from how legends were portrayed in the territory days. The legend in question must be someone who is known to a national or international audience as opposed to a regional one, but the principles remain the same. They must appeal to the fans' nostalgia, and these days that would likely mean someone from the 90s or early 2000s, given that anyone older would likely be unable to compete at a respectable level. They also need to be able to go in the ring. If they are old and broken down, the result is matches like The Undertaker has been having since 2016. If they are unable to be what the people remember, the matches will not feel special and the fans will lose interest. Let's look at how we can craft a situation in WWE today that works. The best fit for a recurring legend role is Goldberg. Goldberg is ridiculously over, and his style of matches should mean that he can do them once in a while, but for a very long time without losing any of what makes him special. Because his matches have always been short and impactful, fans will likely not expect to see anything more, and thus will be less likely to get tired of seeing them. Ignore his loss to The Undertaker for a minute. If Goldberg had a match every 6 to 9 months or so, and beat lowly heels like Dolph Ziggler and Baron Corbin, who fans will want to see get squashed, and then have a big match against an up-and-coming star like Adam Cole or Matt Riddle, it would make the most out of Goldberg's appearances and help create new stars by portraying them on Goldberg's level. This idea is the most plausible as WWE has kept Goldberg strong since 2016, and it would not take much effort to keep feeding him heels to beat. If WWE chooses to do this, they will have an opportunity to have a very special character at their disposal. Now let's take a look at segment-based appearances. Instead of having The Rock verbally eviscerate someone, have him go back and forth with someone like an Adam Cole, a Kevin Owens, or a Sami Zayn, who can hold their own on the mic. The Rock can still get in all of his 10,000 catchphrases, but it would allow someone else to also benefit from his appearance. Then, have the segment end without The Rock laying waste to them physically. This would allow the audience that is tuned in just to see The Rock to be introduced to a new star that they can now see every week when The Rock is gone. It would also allow the wrestler he's verbally sparring with to be elevated by being showcased on a level similar to The Rock. No one that watched SmackDown on Fox thought to themselves, "Wow, I gotta check out that guy The Rock called the Burger King on crack." As stated earlier, for things to have an impact in pro wrestling, they need to mean something. If these matches and segments were constructed with the goal of accomplishing something beyond a pop from the crowd and a quarter-hour rating spike, more people could benefit in the long run. Thank you all for continuing to watch my deconstructions of WWE. Have you ever wondered just how WWE ruined the Hell in a Cell match? Or what lessons NXT must learn when teaching their students? Well, you can get the answers to both by watching my first two videos, the evolution of WWE's Hell in a Cell match, or how WWE ruined Hell in a Cell, and the key lesson NXT must learn from NJPW by clicking the link to the right. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters whose names you can read if you're quick enough. I'm the Brain Brian Joyce, reminding you all to try to take over the world.